And a big thank you to Desert Financial Credit Union for sponsoring our KRIM Community Spotlight program. Good morning, RIM Country. Chris Higgins in the studio. Hope you're having a great Thursday morning. Had to think about that for a second. Looks like we're going to have another beautiful day out there today with temperatures in the low 60s. So if you can, get out and enjoy the nice weather, because it looks like maybe Sunday and Monday we'll have some rain and snow back. So, that's just how it is in March here in RIM Country. Well, this morning on our program, we're talking with Isaac Blake of Digital Payson. Good morning, Isaac.
Good morning, Chris, and to everybody on the radio today.
Yep, on the radio, and also you can watch us on our KRIM FM Facebook page or live stream here from Sawmill, the Sawmill Theater building. And we're going to be talking about internet, and it's only possible that you're able to watch our live stream because of the internet service that we have here in Payson. And I'm very happy to say it is improving, and it seems like it's improving at a pretty rapid pace in comparison to years past, where really we didn't see really any improvement or very minimal improvement to the internet services here in Payson. And that a large part of that is due to the group Digital Payson, yourself, Isaac, and the members in that group that have been working to get this done. It just hasn't happened, and I think it's important for people to realize that your group Digital Payson has been very intentional, and also the town has been intentional in doing everything we can to get improved internet services here in Payson.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. I mean, really, when you take a look at when Digital Payson was founded in January of 2000, and it's our town manager sponsored us as a working group, we saw that there had been a lot of work done trying to improve services up in the Payson area, but there was never really a unified effort. It was more of a spot problem. In other words, hey, let's address this issue or that issue, where we were looking at this more from a holistic perspective, saying, what can we do to improve this and actively engage where we can bring competition and choice to the community, because we really felt that was one of the keys to success. Because Payson, when you take a look at it from a growing city, really, and town really had a lot of opportunity there, but we needed to be able to consolidate that. Also, the service providers were confused on who should they work with, because there was talent groups, there was individuals, there were organizations, and we pulled everyone together to then unify that, saying, hey, let's try to pull together with one kind of strategic view and direction to improve the quality of that. And although we've done a lot over the last 4 years with more to come, you can't argue the success of here we are today, where at residents now they can have gigabit upload and download speeds to their homes. Businesses can have up to 6 gigabits. We're getting constant improvements by all the different service providers with additional facilities coming to town. So it's one of those things that we've been kind of behind the scenes doing a lot of work, with the support of a lot of many people and the community and others. But the opportunity is really to the point of we're still moving forward with this, and I think using an old adage of performance is measured by results. You take a look at where we were in 2019 when I came on the scene, and in 2020 when we started Digital Payson, where we are today, I think is in a much better place for the community, which will help not only for community development but for economic development as well.
Oh, definitely. It's critical for businesses to have reliable internet and a high-speed internet service, but now it is even critical for some residents, yourself being one. Before the program we were talking, and your decision, you and your wife's decision to move to Payson and stay in Payson was really dependent on the internet services being improved.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the things when you take a look at, is that, and the example I often use with people is, there was, being a lifelong Arizonan, and my parents came out after World War II, so I'm very familiar back to when Payson was dirt roads and,
Wow. Oh,
you know,
okay.
with no McDonald's on the corner.
Uh-huh.
You know, is the fact that, you know, when the 87 went from a two-lane roadway to divided highway, that really produced a lot more opportunity for Payson and the Rim area for people to start to explore and use it. Well, the same thing with the digital highway is that now we have these type of things. What we lost before, where it be on the business side, you know, where businesses need certain, you know, internet connectivity, or on the individual sides, where it be just personal or home-based businesses or working from home, you know, really makes it so that people can now consider Payson from that point of view. And one of the things too, that I just had a discussion about this morning online, is the fact that everybody thinks that it's, you know, 100% uptime. Well, it's not 100% uptime because there's not a service provider that will provide that to you. However, what we've been striving toward is not redundancy, but more toward resiliency. Now, what's the difference? Redundancy means two ways to get there. Resiliency means we recognize that things fail, but the thing is, the architecture is to the point where if something fails, that the service can still continue while we're fixing the problem on the back end. And so when we started the journey, when CenturyLink was the sole fiber provider to the community, well, you know, if the proverbial truck hit the fiber, the squirrel, you know, did whatever, the whole community went down. Well, now we have two fiber links coming in, one from the 87 via Lumen and a Sparklight from the 260. Now, there's also agreements that have been reached so that if one starts going down, the other one will share services and switch over. And we also have APS got permission to start to continue their fiber runs from the valley up to Payson and down from Joseph City. So hopefully by the end of this year or early next year, we'll actually have 4 unique fiber runs, middle mile fiber runs coming into and out of Payson. Now, that's a great example of resiliency, because if any one of those goes down, we have 3 other paths that we can route traffic through so things stay up.
Wow, and to think how it was not that long ago, where we had that one line coming on 87, coming over from Camp Verde, that, oh my goodness, when we saw pictures of the line laying on the ground, exposed in certain areas, it was exposed, so there was the potential, and it did happen, of the line being damaged, cut, and we lost all internet service at that point.
Yeah, and so we really are on top of the middle mile stuff. Now what we get into is the last mile discussion, and to that end, okay, so CenturyLink has already deployed the fiber, or excuse me, the copper throughout town. That's your legacy phone service, DSL lines, and all that. But then Optimum just went through over the last 18 months and did a major infrastructure improvement, you know, throughout the Payson market. Not only improving their number of nodes, but updating them, stringing additional cable and fiber throughout the area, and splitting nodes. But now we've got Sparklight that's going through. They've already did the business stuff, as you and your listeners may know. They started that a couple of years ago with the business community, and they have been actively now starting to do it out to the residential. So those are the NCS trucks that you see around town with the big orange spools of conduit that are actually, you know, deploying that conduit throughout and fiber throughout the town. And so now what we have is in ground 3 different formats that we can, you know, leverage. In other words, you can do your traditional copper, copper. You can do more of a coax type of environment, or you can do fiber, and all that's great, for the most part, going to be at or near people's homes.
Wow. Yeah, I'm thinking back, it was less than 5 years ago. I remember when the station was in Western Village, in the front of Western Village, and our service provider at the time could not provide the service for us to be able to live stream like we are today on our Facebook page, YouTube channel. We were not able to do that. We didn't have enough bandwidth. There was just not enough there. Where the recommendation was, well, you can get 2 routers, have 2 accounts basically, so you can split, because we had all of our devices. We had probably 12 devices that were on the internet. using data, using some of that bandwidth. And when we tried to live stream just even the music, there were problems with that, and video wasn't even an option. To where, I think for the last 3 years now, we've been able to, because of another provider coming to town, we've been able to live stream video and not have any problems. And there has been, like you said, some times where it's gone down for a short period of time, but now it's great to see the improvement in the resiliency to where that won't be an issue.
Yeah, and the thing also is important is that we look at from multiple aspects. So in other words, our portfolio of what's available keeps on increasing. So not only do we look at from the wireline providers, those are the ones physically, that are stringing that, but we also work with all the cellular providers. So, the AT&T, T-Mobile, Verizon folks we work with all the time on trying to get more towers or adapting resiliency. And even, with the cellular providers, their backhaul provider is looking at adopting a ring around Payson, so that way cell towers are not dependent upon one specific feed. So if something happens to that feed, the cell tower goes down. This way, they'll have that resiliency as well. Again, it's not 100% because, again, as I pointed out, the big people, the Apples, the Googles, the Microsofts, even 911 systems, have the potential for going down, but that resiliency where we have options so that if something happens, we can still provide the service is the key focal point. And what I think your listeners and community needs to understand, we're doing all this stuff, but then some of it also, I've had somebody post, well, I need 100% uptime at home. I go, okay, but if you really want to be serious about that, then you have to have dual providers. And then what are you going to do when APS's power go out? Do you have backup power, at your home? So there's a lot to that, equation to, in other words, the service could be up, but if the power is down, your equipment can't get power, and so therefore you can't use the service.
Yeah, and even if you have the backup power, if your provider, maybe there's an issue with their backup power and their routers are down for a short period of time, you lose service.
Yeah, and one of the examples I posted on this morning, and again, there's the digital Payson group that we on Facebook, and we try to also watch on Nextdoor a little bit, is really taking a look at saying, we're solving the problem to the street level, but from the street to your house and within your house, you need to kind of take a look at what's going on, because sometimes if you have that level of criticality, have you made the right investments? You just, and the other thing is like, do you have the right equipment for what you're trying to achieve? For example, if you had great equipment, what I try to compare it to is, if you just have an AM radio, you can't get FM or your station. And if you don't have satellite, you can't get Sirius XM and a satellite provider. So there's investments that you need to make from the street to your home and from your home inside to make sure that you're getting all the services that you want. Because if your equipment is aged and it was fine 5-10 years ago, the world has changed, and you need to kind of take a look at that as well.
Gotcha. And you mentioned the Digital Payson Facebook page, which I'm looking at right now. If you're not and it's a group, correct? So
yes,
you
it is.
become a member. If you're not a member of the Digital Payson Facebook group, I really encourage you to become a member, because the Digital Payson group is really an advocate, not only for the town, but residents of the town, the community. And your group is advocating for better digital service in Payson, whether it's home, business, wireless, like you said, with wireless cell phone providers, with our in-home providers, and so on. So feedback, I think, is critical, and you do receive a lot of feedback from residents, parts of town maybe that this service is, a little questionable, or they're having problems, over here, and you're able to, that data is important to you, because then you can pass that on to those providers.
Yeah, and one of the reasons that we wanted to make it a town-sponsored, we figured that in the formation of Digital Payson, was the fact that making it town-sponsored gives us a rallying point, but then one of the most important aspect is, because of my prior experience, is the fact that we then allows us to have direct access to the government affairs groups for each one of the service providers. And this allows us to be able to escalate things on a different path and different ability, within each service provider. So many times, first and foremost, they should work with their service providers on any issues they have. But if we have something that's an ongoing problem or people feel they're at an impasse for, reaching out to us, then we can escalate it through our liaisons, through government affairs, and that goes pretty much into the upper levels of each one of the service providers so that they, take a look at the issue and see what they can do to resolve it. And we've had some really great results. And more importantly, by providing that communications and feedback, that helped a lot of the service providers saying, hey, look, we need to make some investments or rethink how we're doing Payson and the surrounding areas. So it's that collaborative effort, Chris, that's really, helped fuel this. So the success that we're seeing today is the result of everyone's, contributions to try to build a better digital community in Payson and the surrounding areas.
Now, you also mentioned before the program that there is quite a bit of money that's available to rural communities to improve the digital infrastructure in rural parts of Arizona, or really, is it the entire country?
Yeah, well, it started off with the Infrastructure Improvement Act that Congress passed, and then when it got down to the state level, the Arizona Commerce Authority, where the state broadband directors and team is located at, Arizona received just under $1 billion to be able to address needs. Now, the NTIA, which is the National Telecommunications Infrastructure Authority, I probably have that wrong, but the NTIA, they're the ones that are administering at the federal level and with the ACA. Now, what the mission of this money is to specifically go after the unserved and underserved areas of the areas. And now, what's the difference? Well, unserved is straightforward. You don't have any internet access at all. The underserved, based on the latest FCC, Federal Communications Commission's guidelines, say that minimum broadband speeds have to be 100 megabit download, 20 megabit upload, 100 millisecond or less latency, and no data caps. So what that means is if you're in an area where the best that you can get is, let's say, 25 megabit down, then you're in an underserved area. Or if your service plan has data cap limits, you're underserved. And same thing for upload, because what they're trying to achieve is saying, if people want to be able to do remote education, telehealth, and other factors, this is kind of the minimum table stakes for them to have good service in that area. So right now we're in a challenge period for the funding. Now the challenge period, and which we'll be asking for the community's help starting next week on, is that we need the people to go out, and we'll provide all the information for it, and do check the FCC broadband map. They've tried to pull a lot of the data together already, and what we ask of people is just to go out, enter their address, see what the FCC maps show as far as coverage at their particular address, and if it's wrong, file a challenge. And then what that will do, the challenge period ends on May 14th, and once that's done, they'll process all the challenges, get the map to the point that they do it, then they'll start making decisions on how the money's allocated statewide. So it's really important for Payson to get their, and the surrounding area. So we're talking all the way down to, Jake's Corner, up to Pine, out east and everything, is really try to get that map as accurate as possible, because that will help us, enable us to have the best chance to get funding from the ACA. And also the ACA will be funding service providers and other efforts as well. But again, it's all to address that unserved and underserved area.
And now this information and much more information as well can be found on the Digital Payson Facebook group. So again, if you're not a member, please join the group. There's just a lot of great information about recent developments in Payson, in the area, information on different providers, where they're at with certain projects. And what's great is you can also ask questions. And I see quite a few people ask questions to the group, and yourself or other administrators are there to answer those questions. Again, if you're just tuning in or just started watching us on our Facebook live stream, talking with Isaac Blake of Digital Payson, and yeah, it's just very exciting to see all of this happening. The improved internet service here in Payson and Rim Country is a real game changer for the community. Like you said, it is comparable to the dirt road coming up to Payson, being paved and then going to the 2 lanes and then the divided highway. I mean, just easier access, and there's more access or access for more people to come up here, and it's the same with that digital highway like you were saying.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect that we're trying to do looking forward, and we've been engaging with the folks over at the library and other key people in town, is now that we've got it built, there's a tremendous opportunity where we have to educate people and show them what's possible. So that's why we're working with the library and other groups to see what we can do to get people more comfortable of what's available and how to use that, so people understand that. And that's also why on the Facebook page many times we throw out different articles or tips and tricks, answering questions people have, so then that way we can help evolve everything.
Mm-hmm. No, it's great. And now the core team, is that pretty much stayed the same?
Well, yeah, it largely has stayed the same. I mean, since the beginning. So it's myself, Nick, Matt Fieser, and Mike Frazier. Greg was part of one of the original efforts here in town, so he's the kind of the grandfather of many of these efforts, and so he helped us get going with that. And we. And then he said, it's at the point where I feel comfortable, I want to go back and pursue other efforts. So, we recognized him. Yeah, but no, myself as the chair, Nick, Mac, and Mike are the ones really, driving it. But then at the same token, what's even more important to me is the fact that we have a lot of the community starting to help each other. So there's a long list of people that are out there, that really, start adding their own contributions or asking questions and things. And that's what we're looking for, is really to get that synergy going. So then that way it's more of a, people helping people type of environment.
And that's where I encourage people, again, this group, Digital Payson, you all are advocates for improving the digital services here in Payson and the surrounding areas in Rim Country. It does happen sometimes, but people can be a little critical, especially on social media. But just, try to remember that we're all working towards, that same goal, improved digital services in Payson and in Rim Country. And depending on where you live, especially if you're outside of Payson, it just is a little bit harder for those companies to get service. Where I noticed on one of your posts, you mentioned wireless. So maybe fiber runs, they're not going to happen very soon because of the cost involved with running fiber that far, and especially when you have national forest between Payson and outlying communities. But that's where those towers, cell towers being put in different places, can bring improved digital services to those people.
Well, and that goes back to my earlier comments about we're all in. And also let me just back up for a second. Like the people that are part of the Digital Payson core team are people that fellow residents. So in other words, we're vendor agnostic. We're just we're doing this voluntarily, so that we're not paid or have any financial instance. But at the same token, you take a look at Nick Robinson, for example. He has extensive, experience in cable and communications environment, so he's a great resource to, keep us on track. Mac's got, his, pluses with his normal life, but then also, he's involved with certain other areas. Mike has been a technologist for at major corporations and service providers, but it's now retired, so he's is helping us out in that area. So in other words, there's just it's the people helping people. But going back to the point was that, we talked about wireline, we talked about cellular wireless, but again, we're all in on all technology. So in other words, sometimes it might be point-to-point microwave, like what some service providers use in Payson or in remote areas. It could be satellite. So again, we're just trying to, add that, texture to it. Specifically on the cell towers, and I want to take a moment to address that. There's been some stuff posted and also meetings held where there's been concerns about, well, I don't want a cell tower because of, whatever, 5G and other things. There's a lot more that you have to understand. 5G is a technology, it's a way to communicate. Now, when you take a look at 5G itself, there's three spectrums. There's a low spectrum, low frequency, mid frequency, and then high frequency. Everything and higher you go, it's hard for things to go distance. It's great for short distance, but it's usually blocked. Well, a lot of people's concerned about 5G for health is the fact that, first off, everything 6 gigahertz and less is what 4G LTE used today. So, we're talking about the same radio spectrum that you're using and even your microwave at home uses, where that tower would be going on, because the higher frequencies, that above 6 gigahertz, it doesn't make sense to have in Payson. That's great if you're down in the valley or a stadium or ASU and other places, but not in our environment. So it's one of those things that it's a balance that we're trying to strike, sitting there saying, look, we respect the community, but at the same token, and to me this is always the, one thing to keep in the back of mind is, and also I want to address why it's more than just Payson, town of Payson, is that Payson is the 911 public safety access point for the area. So we're not you're in Pine or down, south or out east. If you pick up the phone and dial 911, it goes into our dispatch center. So we have a vested interest on two sides of one coin, which is, one side is making sure anybody that reaches out to 911 that they can be successful reaching out. And then two, the first responders that go on scene have the voice, the text, and data services they need to be able to address whatever issue that they have.
Gotcha.
So, that's one of the things I ask people to always keep in the back of their mind is that, this isn't about Netflix, although Netflix is a nicety, once we get the internet up, but that 911 service on both sides is what we really got to focus on, make sure we've got that coverage and that ability for people to call, text, or whatever 911, as well as the first responders having what they need.
So we're almost right at 10:30, but I want to ask a question, and probably one of the questions I see the most on social media from especially new residents. That is, what is the best internet service in town? Can you just provide or share some of the factors that go into that, and not well, this one is the best or this one offers better, higher speeds, none of that, but I know the different factors that are involved with that, because that isn't a question that it's the same for the entire community.
It's a great question, and I think you've seen me respond to this in kind of a consistent manner. It's not about the best internet service, because what may be best for you may be best for me. In other words, would you walk into a dealership and say, well, I want a new vehicle? What have you really given the salesperson? What's the best vehicle for me to buy? You don't know enough to say. So, it's always interesting. People say, well, what's the best? And they'll say, product A, B, C, or D. And you're like going, okay, well, that's great. That's the right choice for you, but that doesn't mean it's the right choice for the person asking the question. And so what I usually try to ask people is, help me understand what your needs are. What are your requirements? And we start having that type of discussion, so that way I can help you, make the right decision on what's the best internet for you.
So true, and something that's changing as you were answering that question. I thought it used to be a case where depending on the neighborhood or the part of town you were in, it was limited. Maybe
you had a single or binary choice.
Yeah, and but that is changing, because you stated earlier in the program where that is one of the efforts of Digital Payson, is to bring in that competition, bring in other providers, so residents have choices, and the choices can be very similar, in their neighborhood, where in the past it wasn't that way.
Yeah, there's still places where it's still a one, but we're
Yeah.
trying to do that as much as possible. And Starlink and other technologies, satellite, really helps for some of those outlying areas or where we're not quite there yet.
Mhm.
But really, it still comes back down to, that's why I get away from a technology question, saying if you walked into, a car dealership, and just asked, well, what's the best vehicle?
Yeah.
There's not much meat on that bone.
Yes, no, that's great. Well, thank you so much, Isaac, for your time this morning, and thank you for all of your efforts and the efforts of everyone involved with Digital Payson, the people, on the board, those core members, along with all of the individuals that are helping you with the Facebook page and in other areas. So we really appreciate, again, all of the time that you've invested in this group and to improve the internet services here in Payson.
Well, it's our pleasure, and we look forward to a bright digital future for our community.
Yeah, well, thank you so much again, and thank you everyone that was listening and watching today, and also thank you to Desert Financial Credit Union for sponsoring our Community Spotlight program. Time to get back to the music with some Deep Purple, Grand Funk Railroad, Jackson Browne, and more. But first, let's get a quick update from the National Weather Service.
With this morning's KRIM weather forecast for Payson and
Thank you
surrounding
guys.
areas,
See ya.